What's going on, guys? Hope everyone is having a fantastic day. I did this video yesterday in the evening, and it's my second or third attempt because I didn't feel I was organized enough. This isn't my full-time job, mind you, as a YouTuber or drone reviewer or anything like that. But I do enjoy sharing my experiences, and this is going to be on the Mavic 3 Pro. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. Hit the thumbs up button, comment if you'd like, and yeah, hit the notification bell, whatever, all that kind of fun stuff. So I actually even brought some notes, but just so you know, this is going to be my review on the Mavic 3 Pro to date. I had, the minute the Mavic 3 released, I bought the Cine version. I had issues with that, kind of whatever, not fun, but I lost the drone in the city, recovered it. So there's pros and cons to the Mavic 3 Pro and the Mavic 3, but the Mavic 3 Pro right now is essentially the drone that the Mavic 3 should have been initially, in my opinion at least. So the Mavic 3 had two lenses. It had the 24mm and it had actually a 7x 164mm, and this Mavic 3 Pro has three lenses now. So it has the 24mm Hasselblad micro four thirds sensor. It has the 3x lens, which is a 70mm lens equivalent, and I believe that's a 1 1/3 inch sensor. And now we have, and we still have the 7x zoom, which is now I think 166mm lens, and that's a 1/2 inch sensor. It has three lenses. It's much more refined. The firmware is dialed as opposed to the Mavic 3 when it first initially dropped. Firmware was super beta-ish and just not a good drone as of yet. The base was there, but it was hardly, in my opinion, in a position to be released, but they did it anyway, and this is the drone that we really were waiting for. So with that being said, this drone is hands down to me the most versatile drone out there. So I've had Phantom 4s, Phantom 4 Pros, Phantom 3, Mavic 2 Pros, Mavic 2 Zooms, whatever, Inspire 2, Autel Evo 2 Pro 6Ks, Evo 2 Pro 6K Enterprises, Nano Pluses, Light Pluses. I've had enough drones in my arsenal to kind of know the goods and the bads about how they fly, about sensor quality, and all that kind of good stuff. So mind you, my background is a 25-year plus professional photographer. I do a lot of retouching, or I did a lot of retouching, so expert level in Photoshop. I know how to color grade video relatively well. So I understand color. I got a certificate with color theory, and just that's my base background. I've been flying drones for roughly 8 years, and I wish I would have got more into video, but this is, without digressing, I'm into video now, probably more than I am photos. But still, as far as a still photography drone is concerned, I would say probably This is one of the best because of the versatility of the 3 lens options. So as a photographer, we know having lenses is a different compression, a different look, a different focal length, and it gives you some flexibility and some variety in your shots. So say, for example, I'm using this for roof inspections. I can use the 7x zoom. I can be further away from my subject. There's all kinds of creative possibilities with having different lens options. The only lens options I've ever had on a drone, other than the digital zooms and the kind of crappy options you have with some of the ones that are out there consumer-wise, is the Inspire 2. So the Inspire 2, I had, you know, different lens options, and that was really great. I kind of thought that's the route DJI was going to take with this drone. I thought we possibly would have different lens options, and we do in theory, but not a removable, detachable lens. So with that being said, I think probably if I was to really say the best photography drone out there, just for still pictures, nothing else, would probably be an Autel 6K, the 1-inch sensor that's in the Lite Plus or the Evo 2 Pro 6K models. I think the image quality, even though that has a 1-inch sensor, and this is a Micro Four Thirds, which is a little bit bigger than a 1-inch sensor, next step up is an APS-C, and then from there we got a full frame. Ideally, the Mavic 4 will be a full frame sensor, and maybe a detachable lens. That's my wish list, but who knows? Right now we got to be grateful for what we have, and this is that drone, the Mavic 3 Pro. So different lens options, a great flying drone. Autel isn't so much of a great flying drone. This thing handles extremely well. It's fast. It has OcuSync 3.0, so we got great transmission and connectivity to the drone, which we didn't really have in the beginning with the firmware being all kind of janky, but now we do. I haven't really had any issues other than an incident in high winds and a geozone kind of thing that I was kind of near, supposedly. But I don't know, I had to retrieve it in a cornfield. Nothing happened to it, thankfully, but that was kind of just a weird, complex area I guess I was flying in. So what else is there? So 3 different lenses, we talked about that. We got medium, wide, and telephoto. So we got 3 basic options for versatility with this drone. So we have 2 different models. We have the Mavic 3 Pro, and we have the Mavic 3 Pro Cine. The Cine allows you to have the ProRes codec built in, and it has a 1 terabyte built-in SSD, which is cool in theory because you have this large onboard SSD drive, but when I crashed my Mavic 3 Cine, guess what happened? My SSD drive failed. So I had to send the drone in to DJI. Took forever. They actually were able to recover the images and the files that my ProRes files were on. And that's that. So if you capture ProRes on the Cine version, it has to be captured to the internal SSD. So there's that. And the possibility of that SSD failing is apparently a real thing, since I've had that happen with one crash. Yes, it was a significant crash, but regardless, it still did fail. You wouldn't have that happen with a micro SD card, for example. So Cine version, is that necessary? Only if you want to shoot ProRes footage, which is a lot larger file sizes, and if you have clients requiring you to shoot ProRes. So that's going to be for larger photo shoots, more cinematic production work. I personally don't have too many people asking me. I have, and that's where I use my Inspire 2. That's no longer with me anymore. So I may buy a Cine version as well, just to have both. Have this standard Mavic 3 Pro to use basically for everyday flying, because I don't have to worry so much about it, and then use a Cine version for my higher end stuff, client work, and maybe just my personal work that I want the highest possible quality footage, like ProRes. But with that being said, it's hard to really tell a difference in the footage quality, but I was looking at some of my old Mavic 3 ProRes footage, and it did look kind of better. So there is that. I mean, it probably won't be something noticeable for most people, but if you really are color grading your footage and shooting 10-bit and wanting the best of the best, you will want to buy the Cine version. Unfortunately, DJI doesn't allow us to buy anything other than their Cine kit, which includes the smart controller, or the RC Pro smart controller, which I personally don't even enjoy. I rather use the RCN1 with my iPhone. I got an iPhone 15 Pro Max. To me, that's more than enough. I like having the connectivity of my iPhone. I'm just very comfortable with that combination when I fly. So the RC Pro to me is heavy. It's one more piece of equipment that I have to worry about firmware updates. And I just personally don't want to deal with anything more than my drone. This is nothing other than firmware, but it's not going to affect me having to update it in the field with no Wi-Fi or something. I just use my iPhone, pair it with that or connect it to that, and I'm good to go. So this drone, unlike maybe a Mini 4 Pro or some of the lower end drones, has a variable aperture. So what does that mean? That means we have the control of our aperture, meaning the opening of our lens, the diaphragm, so it will go from 2.8, which is a wide open lens, to f11, which is a smaller opening, letting in less light, giving you more depth of field. So what does that do for us? It gives us more control over our light, it gives us more control over our depth of field, and with these 3 lens options, between all of that, okay, wait, I take that back. The variable aperture is only for the main lens, the primary 24mm lens only. So, but it gives you that ability for shooting stills with that lens, and that's a big part of the drone experience for a professional photographer or videographer. So this drone shoots 10-bit, 4K 60. Those are pretty much the standard things you'll need if you're shooting video. 4K 60, 10-bit. I think it's 10-bit if you shoot 264, 265 in D-Log or D-Log-M now. So I don't even know if you can shoot 10-bit in normal color space, but regardless, you can let me know in the comments below. The battery life on this guy is roughly, it says 43 minutes, but I probably would get 30 to 35 minutes out of each battery if they're kind of cycled, meaning there's more cycles on it than less. If a new battery, maybe you'll get 35 to 37 minutes out of one of these guys. You probably want a bunch of them. Maybe you want one of the little power stations now. I have a Power 500 coming to me. That should be kind of a cool thing to use and have in my car if I want to go ahead and charge these guys on the fly. So batteries are great, variable aperture, 3 different lens options, 4K 60, 10-bit color, flies like a champ. Really just a super versatile drone. If you saw the opening footage, you have everything from cinematic shots to the ability to fly in the city environment with a good transmission and not having any issues. You have the ability to shoot professional work like the roofing stuff or commercial roofing stuff or roof inspections. It's just very versatile and very capable. Great drone, and hands down probably the most versatile drone out there. Say I wanted to go and shoot my Inspire 2. It's a lot bigger drone and it's a lot bigger footprint, and guess what? If I see a shot unfold, I'm gonna have to go ahead and pull out a big case, put that thing together. Yes, it's possible, but it's not an easy thing to do. And people who are actually shooting cinematic work, because I have friends in the industry and you talk to people and people that have drone stores and enterprise stuff that they're selling off, and people who are shooting cinematic work most likely are using a Mavic 3 Pro Cine over the Inspire 3 a lot of times, just because there's so much more involved in flying an Inspire body like the Inspire 3. You may need 2 or 3 people around for dual op and visual observer and someone just to help out with everything that's involved. There's a lot to an Inspire 3 or an Inspire 2 drone. So this is going to be way easier, way more simplistic, and all you do is give your client ProRes footage, and most likely you're going to get them really beautiful stuff for a lot less work and a lot easier footprint. This thing obviously folds up really compact and easily, so I could have this thing sitting like this, unfold the arms, unfold the props, you're good to go. I don't even do that. I keep this in the back of my car like this, no gimbal cover, because it's fine where it's sitting, and boom, power it on, you're up and running and good to go. So yeah, this is kind of a long-term review of this drone. In the beginning, when I first got the Mavic 3 and had all that issue with the Cine flying off on me and the firmware being really bad at the time, kind of like we're beta testing the drone, I didn't like it at all. The experience really sucked. It was definitely not a polished firmware. It wasn't a refined drone like it is now. Again, I think this should have been the drone released right off the gate, even if we had to wait a little bit, because it's a great, amazing drone. It flies really nimbly. I think that's a word, nimbly, but it flies great. The thing will descend super quickly because of the shape of the arms, they're really thin, and it just drops and descends super efficiently. So it really gives you a lot of confidence when you're flying. Say, for example, like the Autel that I said, the Evo 2 Pro 6Ks and the Light Pluses, even though I think the image quality for the sensor, because it's not always sensor size, usually it's the sensor size and the lens quality that kind of gives you a good file. But it's also the sensor itself. So the sensor in the Autel I know is a Sony sensor, which to me are the best sensors out there. And it just gives a little bit more pleasing look to the overall file than I think this does. But with that being said, all around, this is definitely the better drone to have in your back pocket. I mean, it has cruise control, so you can go ahead and, you know, fly and hit the function button. You can program it. The only thing I don't like about that, so when you press it, it will kind of lock your stick movement so you can stay off the sticks and in theory have it do it on its own. But it's really hard to be flying and working a really nice shot and hitting and depressing this function button. I think on the other controllers you can program it for the bottom, which is really great. That would probably be the only reason I would use my RC. I don't have an RC Pro, just as I said, because I don't prefer it. I probably use my RC controller like 3 times out of the year plus that I've had it. I have it for the Mini 4 Pro and stuff. If you have a Mini 4 Pro, which I do, and some other drones, if you want to zoom in on something, I mean, this thing, say the flower shot in the opening scene, that's with the 3-time zoom, and guess what? It was pretty windy, and you're still able to get a 3 to 5 second clip with really no issue. It's not super simple to fly this 7 times, Jesus. It's not super simple to fly this 7 times lens cinematically in video because it's just so compressed. So it takes some practice to really fly this 7 times lens in video to get a good shot. You don't need a lot though, so keep that in mind. All you need is 3 seconds to 10 seconds to get a nice additional B-roll clip for an edit, kind of like that tractor shot in the opening cinematic little introduction of this video, and it looks great. I mean, it's pretty detailed. You do a little kind of color grading. I think you can actually shoot D-Log in the 7-time lens. I don't really know. I don't use D-Log too much other than with the main lens, just because I probably should play around with that more. But that's kind of it. I mean, this is what I have on my paper: frame rate, sensor size, talking about the telephoto lens a little bit, the medium lens, the versatility of the 3 lenses, which if you're into photography, no brainer. Obviously, iPhones, Apple, they have 3 different lenses. It's kind of just a given nowadays, so that's great. Talked about the Cine versus the non-Cine. Basically, the only difference is the built-in SSD drive for recording the ProRes codec, the little transfer cable that they provide with it, and the ProRes codec. So that's that for the Cine version, other than a big price jump. But in my opinion, having a more expensive drone with the internal SSD kind of prevents me personally from flying it as freely and maybe taking a little bit more risk, because I know there's not as much invested, even though, yes, I think you should definitely buy refresh for this drone, even insure it with someone like Allstate or State Farm or whoever it is, and have an additional insurance coverage on this. It doesn't cost a lot either. So refresh, huge fan of. And what else? So I talked about the video transmission. This is OcuSync 3 Plus. I think they have 4 now, and I think the Inspire 3 is 4 Plus. So basically, it's way good enough. It's not the latest and greatest, but it's still very capable of having a solid connection to your drone, providing a lot of confidence in all kinds of environments. Of course, if you're flying in the city, you got to be really diligent on what this thing is doing. I talked about shooting 10-bit. So there's that. We got 10-bit, we got 4K 60, we got JPEG, we got RAW files. Mavic 3, this thing weighs 958 grams and the Cine weighs 963 grams. So not a lot of difference in those 2 drones other than what I talked about a handful of times already. So that's kind of it. This drone, honestly, hands down, one of the best drones out there. Out of all the other drones that I want to fly, I would probably fly my Mini 4 Pro for something indoors, or if I wanted a really quiet, unintrusive drone because there's people around or something. But I don't really go to many other drones other than this guy just because it's so darn capable and it's so darn versatile. So if you got to take anything out of this rambling, that's it. The most versatile drone out there, the best drone out there in my opinion. Let me know what you think. I think this is #1 in 2024 to date. Yes, an Inspire 3 I'm sure will be a lot better cinematically, but really this thing can do so much. It's not going to be doing specific stuff like mapping or agricultural spraying or thermal, but with that being said, 80 to 90% of the population, consumer and professional wise, probably will be able to use this drone for a huge part of their workflow, making money and just for fun. So with that being said, guys, aloha, peace, and yeah, let me know what you think in the comments below about this drone. If you love it, you hate it, what you think the Mavic 4 may be about. And that's it, guys. Peace. Bye.